So we're going to give you a quick tutorial on how to clean the blower. This is really important. The machine will not function properly if you do not clean this blower. You don't have to clean the blower during the course of a 1 or 2 day operation. But by the time you get done with a 2-day operation of running for 8-10 hours a day, the inside of this blower is going to be filthy. And every little 1/4 inch of material built up on the inside of this impeller housing requires a huge amount of horsepower to keep running at the same suction. So the first thing to do is tilt the blower back up so that you can get to the cover plate and the impeller easy. And then simply with a little cordless screwdriver, remember you use one with a clutch action on it so that when you're tightening these things, you don't over-tighten strip these. Take all of these screws out. As you can see, it's pretty darn easy. Once you get the cover off, you're going to remove a 13mm bolt that's right in the center of the impeller. That's the big wheel with the vanes on it. Now, if you haven't cleaned and taken this off for quite a while, it's going to be really hard to get off sometimes. You can't just pull off. You may have to get yourself a nice big puller, put it on the impeller, and get the impeller broke loose so that it comes off easy. Now, once you get it broke loose the first time, when you put it back together, make sure that you put some never sees on it and clean the shaft up. And the next time you got to pull it out, hopefully you'll have done it within a good period of time, and you'll be able to just take the bolt out and pull the impeller out quite easily with your fingers by just moving it back and forth. So we're going to let you see just a real quick idea what a puller's like and how to use it. Once you get it loose, like I said, it should come out pretty easy, and you can look inside this impeller housing and see all of this gunk and buildup. Sometimes it's a lot worse than this. This has already been sprayed down the day before with a little bit of a simple green or orange cleanser and then wrapped in a plastic bag so that it didn't evaporate. It makes it soften up, and especially if you've let this thing sit for a week or something, you got to do this. You can see the gunk built up inside of it. You need to get this off. So the best thing, once you get the cover and the impeller out, is to tip this machine up so that the opening where the 5-inch hose goes onto is in a drain position. Just makes it a lot easier to clean it with the pressure washer. So again, we've got a pressure washer that will handle hot water. Don't try to do this job without a pressure washer that will handle hot water. You can buy a cheap pressure washer and it'll work. It'll last you for a year or two before the seals will burn out from running hot water. Now, when I say hot water, I mean just household hot water from your hot water tank. If you buy one of the big expensive pressure washers that heats water, you'll get it too hot and you'll damage all of the neoprene and plastic seals on the machine and the blowers. So just stay with typical household temperature hot water. Clean off the impeller as best you can. And again, if it's really gunky and really dirty, you're a lot better off to just get the vast majority of the material off with the hot water first, and then spray it down with some sort of a cleanser and stick it in a plastic bag and let it soak overnight. Way easier than sitting there for hours and wasting all your hot water trying to clean that stuff off. The next day when you come back and you pull it out, as you'll see in our video, it's going to be a lot easier to clean. Now when you're cleaning this inside of this impeller housing, you know, it's a little tricky. You got to just get up and get into the corners and find different angles and ways to clean it off. Again, the more often you clean it, the sooner you clean it after you're done with the job, the easier this will be before it sets up and gets really hard. One thing I'd like you to remember is stay away from pressure washing right near the bearing, where I just showed you. Right around that shaft, just don't do it, because you're going to push water in past the neoprene seal into the bearings. Once water gets into the bearings, they're going to rust and out your bearings go. So just stay away from it with the pressure washer. It won't go in there from just by flow, but it will go in there if you hit it directly with pressure. So for cleaning up the outside plastic and metal just to get some of the gunk and goo off, a little acetone or a little isopropyl alcohol on a rag or a cloth, and you can clean up all of the built up gunk and material. It's a good idea just to keep your machine clean, you know. You've spent a lot of money on this thing. Now remember, as you probably saw in the video, I just wiped off the 220 volts sticker on it. You got to remember this machine is not designed to be run on 110. You can rewire it to do it, but it requires a 20 amp breaker. And we just prefer to tell you to run this machine on 220. So don't accidentally plug it into a 120 outlet you're going to burn it up. And it does happen. People do it accidentally. So we talked about cleaning this shaft up with a little acetone or alcohol and then putting some Never-Seez on it. Never-Seez you can get at any auto supply store. It's kind of a silver gunky material. And this is a good one. Loctite makes it. And you just rub a little of this onto the shaft, and it keeps the shaft from corroding, rusting, and when you need to take it back off the next time, it'll come off quite easily. Push a little bit into the threads where the bolt goes in, and now your bolt will come out easy without ever binding up or galling. Put your impeller back in. Make sure it goes down on the keyway and goes all the way down to the bottom. Put your bolt back in and tighten it up. Torque it down nice, but don't crank down on it so hard you strip the threads out of it. Just a good firm tightening on it. Put your cover back in place. Line your cover back up and just put the screws back in. This is where it's real important to use the clutch setting on your cordless drill so that you don't wind up stripping the threads. You start stripping the threads into this thing and now you got a real problem. So just use a good cordless drill with the clutch. Set it down so it just stops when you get this thing tight enough to hold the cover in place. It doesn't have to be a lot of pressure on it. I also like to make sure that I put in all the screws first, but not all the way. Don't tighten them all the way up. This way you don't wind up getting a little out of alignment and you got to go back and loosen everything up to get it go back on. So just put them all on, just partially down, then go back around and tighten them all up for the final torque. Once you get the cover back on, you're going to plug this in, and you're going to want to run this thing for 10-15 minutes if you can. And just sitting there by itself running. But you've got to have the cover in place. You've got to have some resistance. If you don't put the cover in place and you run this, your impeller will spin too fast, overamp, and burn your motor out. So be careful. Don't do it like that. And that's all it takes to take care of this machine. If you'll do this, as soon as you get done with work, it'll only take you 5 or 10 minutes. If you wait a week or two, it's going to take you a half hour or longer. And again, remember, it's better just to get the majority of the material off, spray it down with some sort of a cleanser, put it in a big, heavy-duty plastic garbage bag, tie it up, and let it sit for the night. When you come back the next day, your job's going to be a lot easier. Thank you.